Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, Hex Speed. So it has been a few weeks since we've worked on the P-47 and got one of my favorite YouTube channels on the TV right now. That's the RC Geek, in case you didn't know. Working on his Free-Wing Panther. Speaking of Free-Wing Panthers, a small side note here. I'm experimenting with paint, not necessarily for this model. I was really hoping for a easier, cheaper alternative for the Corsair than going with the class coat like I did with the Bearcat. Part of the reason is that color is a little too dark, but I'll probably end up just using that same paint on the Corsair. I tried this. This is a Rust-Oleum rattle can with some clear on it. And it's not terrible. It looks pretty good in low light in here, but out in the sun, it's definitely too light. So anyways, that's just me being picky. Most guys probably wouldn't care. But anyways, got some things to discuss. So I do have quite a few new subscribers to the channel over the last month or so. So thank you guys for coming along. This is a predominantly RC channel, though I do some car content on here as well. But we're not just kind of like your standard issue reviewer type channel. We do a lot of different stuff here. I'm working on ARFs right now, but you know, we got scratch built turbine powered airplanes, we got ARFs, we got foamies, we got highly modified vintage kits, we've got glow ducted fans. Even no one's messing with those. Quite a few scratch built airplanes like my YF-17 or the Bell X1 you see right up here. There's, you know, another scratch built right here. This is a Vought Vindicator that my friend John Morgan started, and my friend Scott and I finished after he passed away. More ARF stuff. I got my Panther to do all the same mods that the RC Geek was doing to his Panther. So we made a little exchange there. I made some more scale canopies for us, and he made me some 3D printed parts, and we kind of ran some ideas back and forth about doing body flaps, and he did the first iteration of them and worked out pretty well. So anyways, but now we're back on the P-47 project. I still have, you know, more work to do on the Corsair to finish it. It is flying, obviously, like you guys have seen on the channel. But we did get the radial engines for the P-47 and the Corsair. So these are made by a company called Scale RC Engines, and they have a lot of different options. These are the R2800s, so this is obviously the correct motor for the Corsair, Bearcat, and P-47, and that's what I have in my Bearcat. It's kind of hard to get the sizing on the video right, but anyways, this will fit, I promise. But essentially, what you end up with is, and it's hard to tell because of the lighting, but it's a very realistic look in the front of the airplane, more realistic than an actual model engine radial, and certainly more realistic than most of your typical kind of just like, you know, generic radials, whether they be 3D printed or vacuum formed, like what would come with like this P-47. Like the vacuum form motors that come with that are super kind of just cheesy, not detailed. This is a very authentic fake engine. It is a little heavy, but you know, on a 40-pound model and on a Warbird especially, a little bit of extra nose weight isn't going to hurt anybody. So I can't just mount these in there. It doesn't work that easy, unfortunately. I do have to clearance a bunch of stuff on the backside for the cylinders and the mufflers, but when it's all said and done, it ends up looking pretty good. And if you've watched any of the Bearcat videos, you know how nice that looks in the front of the airplane. So especially with the big prop behind it, super cool. And the neat thing about these guys is they will actually custom size things for you. So this was made to my specifications, as well as the center hole had to be enlarged from their original design to clear the prop hub. So these guys really cool to work with, and you know, for a custom job like this, the price isn't horrible, especially for the amount of detail we have on here. So anyways, I got those finally. I ordered those about a month ago or so, and they came in the mail while I was gone. So let's see. And I've been playing with the flaps. I know I'd mentioned in previous videos that, look at this, that's kind of hilarious. The flap for the P-47 is the same size as the Panther wing. I had mentioned previously that I was going to try and rehinge these to be a little more scale, and the more I look at it, the more that I don't know if that's really going to be possible on this model, just because the area that I'd have to actually hinge them would be way back here. So I guess I could potentially still do it, you know, to where it's a more realistic deployment of the flap versus how they currently just kind of drop out like this, which I don't really like, but I don't know. Might just run with it for now the way it is. I can always come back to it later if I really decide to. Then I got some new wheels. These are Dubro 6-inch tires. And I also got a smoke pump. So this is for a smoke system. And I got a few tanks, although now I'm thinking these might be a little on the small side. The P-47 I can fit quite a big tank in for smoke. So I'm probably going to put a bigger tank in that. The Bearcat I can fit a decent tank in for smoke, but the Corsair is somewhat limited on space inside. So we'll see. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do that just yet. But anyways, that's enough rambling for now. I'm going to go ahead and kind of give this one more thorough going over to see if I can figure out a geometry that'll work and be structurally sound. But there's a pretty decent chance I'm just going to end up using the original hinge setup. So anyways, if you haven't ever seen the RC Geek, definitely go check out his channel. He's got a lot of really cool videos. Most of you probably already know who Chris is, but I've actually known Chris since I was a little kid. My dad worked for his dad actually when his dad had his hobby shops back in the 80s. And so anyways, I've known Chris since I was a little kid, and unfortunately, he moved back to Tennessee. Well, fortunately for him, he moved to Tennessee, but we haven't been able to hang out in a long time, which is unfortunate because we used to kind of get together and fly on a pretty regular basis and do projects together and stuff. But in fact, that's one of them right there, the Vigilante. But anyways, that's where we're at, and let me see what I can do here. All right, so just for reference, this is how the flaps come hinged from the factory. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but I'm just not a huge fan of how it looks. And also, these shouldn't have stripes inside. So I'm gonna have to figure that out, but yeah, I don't know. I might try and rehinge them because it's just gonna bother me. It's just gonna bother me. Alright guys, so I got my new microphones in the mail just now, so I'm giving those a whirl. I decided to go for it. I just chopped everything up and said, screw it, we're gonna figure it out. So, I made some plywood templates just to get an idea of where to put everything and get a decent template for cutting some parts. So that's what I have. This is same sheet material as fiberglass sheet that I used on the Corsair. So basically it's going to have a small hinge point on this side, and then this one will go in between these original two fiberglass sheets like this. And obviously can't do it single-handedly, but essentially that's where it's going to be, and it's going to rotate on that pivot point there, so it should keep everything nice and tight. So just got to make a big fiberglass mess and cut out all these little pieces now. Alright guys, so we skipped some steps on you here. As you can see, the flap is fully finished now. This is a new hinge point that I decided on. I didn't fully think it through, and I ended up having to modify the flap a little bit, because what was happening is that it was actually, the front of the flap was rubbing. So mostly down here, a little bit down here. So, oops. So what I ended up doing was taking a little bit off the front of the flap, and I ended up carving down into the foam core on the composite. So it was a whole disaster. Unfortunately, now I know how to fix it for the other side, but I was already fully committed by the time I figured it all out. So now I just kind of got to do the other side the same way. Whoops, just realized I didn't have my microphone on me. I'm trying out new microphones, and I got a new phone today. Got a free upgrade, so we got some fresh camera. But anyways, so the mounts are all in. You can see we already paint matched everything. We also sprayed some zinc chromate in here, which is super sweet. I'll show you guys the top side of it. So this is how it looks on the top side now. So this is obviously where the push rod is, and I did metal tape along here, but you can see how nice this gap is now compared to what it was before. So before, you guys can remember when the flaps came out, they dropped way down. There was like literally a gap that big, just a gigantic gap. So super sweet now. You can see this has basically perfect amount of clearance. Essentially can't get it any closer than that. So the flap is done. Still working on mounting the gear here. Let me swap over to the Aileron servo. So the Aileron was a massive pain in the butt, and I'll show you why in a second. So it's all internal linkage for one. Let me pick the wing up here. So it's all internal linkage, and of course they make the hole for the servo as small as they possibly can for whatever reason on a model this size. So you can look up close on the servo, and you can see how the just pop the freaking clevis off. Yep. All right, well, now I gotta take it all back apart again, but you can see how nice the gap is on top. And yeah, this is day 2 of the first wing. So as you can see, I literally just reinstalled these hinges. Now I gotta take it all apart because I popped the clevis off because I went too far on the throw. Popped it off the servo arm, so that's actually not so bad. I can pop that back on. That one I'm actually be able to put a keeper on. This one, there's no room on the clevis to put a keeper as far as keeping it from spreading open. But anyways, this is how the aileron's hinged, just like a real one. So, yeah, the servo's in the way now. So when I roll this way, what this does is it creates like a little spoiler down here, and it keeps the roll rate axial. And so anyways, yeah, I'm going to have to put some sort of keeper on that, because obviously having that pop off is not a good thing. But you can also see that we sprayed zinc chromate in the wheel wells. I got to bolt the gear unit in here still, but it's coming along. I got it pretty much sorted out now. It's just been a giant pain in the butt. So we're going to get the wheels painted, get the struts painted, put the gear in on this side, the doors tonight hopefully, and then this wing will be done. Obviously I have to address this servo clevis still. So anyways, that's where we're at, and we'll check back in a few minutes once I get everything else sorted out. Alright guys, we're going to pretty much cut it off right here for the night. So we got the gear installed, the toe is set, the strut length is set, and I got the first part of the door on, which as you can see fits really nice. Had to make a spacer here, had to space the struts there. The issue I'm running into is this door has to be actuated by the strut, and there's these nice little tubes here that you can mount a push rod to for a door. The problem is, as you'll see here in a second, they're totally in the way. So let me put the gear down. And from what I understand, these Robart controllers are garbage. So I'm going to buy something else. It's got to work in the meantime. Alright, so what we have here is we got to space the door out, obviously. The strut's got to pull it closed. So you would think that we could run a wire across here like that. But basically, you see where those are at? Yeah. So you can't run a push rod across here because the door will hit it. So it's got to be down here where it connects. So I'm going to have to bond another tube on down here, or a bracket of some sort to hold a push rod for this. And it's already 9:30. I'm leaving tomorrow for another work trip. So I think that's where we're going to end it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to slide the wing onto the airplane and show you guys how it looks. These big old 6-inch tires actually look just about right, and the flaps turned out awesome. So you slap this on the airplane really quick and we'll give you guys a peek before we end the video. Alright, so here's how it looks on the plane. I thought that 6-inch tire was going to look kind of big, but it actually looks really good. So there we can see the flaps. That gap looks so much nicer than the original setup, and I'm glad I went through the headache to make all that work. Looks so much better. Anyways, that's the door gear, the way it looks. Pardon my bearcat. Looks pretty rad. This new phone's got some pretty sweet cameras on it too. Obviously the wing isn't all the way cinched up against the fuselage there. But yeah, so that's the gear install. Looks pretty sweet. Flap looks amazing. I love the zinc chromate in here. Looks super cool. And yeah, the strut angle's just about right. Yeah, it looks pretty sweet. Anyways, yeah, it's 2 days worth of work. We're still not done with this wing. So we gotta get this little door figured out. And then obviously at some point we gotta put the inner doors on it as well. So it's a whole nother headache. But we're getting there. It's just, I thought the hard work was over and it wasn't. So anyways, hope you guys liked P-47 episode here. And like always, we'll see you in the next one.